supermarkets prep and sell meals, and it's exactly why one got in trouble with health inspectors.
There is meat in your refrigerator right now, and chances are you never questioned where it came from or what happened before it reached that package. That is exactly what the grocery industry depends on. Today, that changes. We are exposing 5 grocery chains you should seriously reconsider buying meat from, where to shop instead, and why it matters for your health, workers, animals, and communities. By the end of this, you will never look at a grocery store meat case the same way again. 5. Walmart. Let's start with the biggest one because the biggest one sets the terms for the entire industry. Walmart is the largest grocery retailer in the United States. That scale is not incidental to this conversation. That scale is the entire story. When you are selling more meat than any other retailer in America, the pressure on your supply chain flows in one direction only: lower cost, higher volume, faster turnaround. The costs that get reduced first are always the ones hardest for customers to see. The conditions on the farms, the treatment of workers in processing plants. That is where the pressure shows up. Walmart sources meat from some of the largest industrial processors in the world: Tyson Foods, Cargill, JB's, and National Beef. These companies process millions of animals every year through enormous facilities that have faced years of scrutiny over contamination risks, labor conditions, and animal welfare concerns. In 2021, a Department of Justice investigation found evidence of price fixing among some of the country's largest chicken processors, including suppliers connected to major retail chains. Here is something most Walmart shoppers do not realize. Much of the beef sold under Walmart branding does not come from a single animal. It is blended, meaning meat from multiple animals processed at the same facility is combined into one package. A single package of ground beef may contain material connected to dozens or even hundreds of animals. One contamination event can spread across enormous quantities of product very quickly. That is not a random accident. It is the predictable outcome of a system designed around speed and volume above everything else. Walmart's meat is cheap. The price on the label is low, but the full cost, measured in antibiotic use, animal welfare failures, processing plant worker injuries, and contamination risk, is not on the label. It is being paid somewhere else by someone else in ways you are never meant to see. And Walmart is just the beginning, because the next chain on this list is not competing on price. They are competing for trust. They have spent years building a reputation as the cleaner, more responsible alternative. Wait until you hear what is actually happening inside their meat department. 4. Kroger. Kroger is the largest traditional supermarket chain in the United States. If Walmart is the dominant force in American grocery overall, Kroger is the dominant force in what most people picture when they think of a grocery store. They operate under dozens of banner names across the country, including Fred Meyer, King Soopers, Ralph's, Harris Teeter, and many others. If you think you do not shop at Kroger, there is a reasonable chance you actually do and simply do not know it. The Kroger meat case presents itself as a step above the discount warehouse model. The stores are nicer. The branding is more polished. The private label products carry names designed to suggest quality and care. The reality inside that supply chain is more complicated. In 2019, Kroger was named in a class action lawsuit alleging that the chain had been systematically applying new labels with extended sell-by dates to meat that had already passed or was approaching its original date, then returning that meat to the case for sale. This is not a trivial accusation. Sell-by dates exist for a specific reason: to communicate the point at which bacterial growth reaches levels that represent a meaningful health risk. Applying a new date to old meat does not make the meat safer. It makes the consumer less informed. And a less informed consumer is more likely to purchase a product they would have left on the shelf if they had accurate information about its age. Kroger denied the allegations, and the case proceeded through the legal system. But the allegation reflects a practice that food safety investigators have documented at various retail operations across the industry, where relabeling meat approaching its sell-by date becomes routine inventory management rather than exceptional misconduct. Beyond the labeling questions, Kroger's supply chain raises the same fundamental concerns as any large retail chain sourcing from industrial processors. The same Tyson, JBS, and Cargill connections. The same pressure for volume and cost efficiency. The same distance between the animal on the farm and the package in the case. What Kroger adds to this picture is a marketing layer that suggests premium quality without consistently delivering it. Their simple organic line carries organic certification for some products, which addresses certain concerns about pesticide use in feed. But organic certification does not guarantee meaningful outdoor access for the animals, and it does not speak to the conditions inside the processing facility where the animal was slaughtered and packaged. Shoppers who believe they are paying a premium for meaningfully better meat at Kroger are often paying a premium for meaningfully better marketing. Everything load-bearing is still there. The lawsuit detail, the sell-by-date mechanics, the industrial supplier connections, the organic certification caveat, and the closing line. The compression came from cutting the restatements and letting each point land once instead of twice. Hey, hold on for a second. Did you know that the bright red color in packaged beef could be carbon monoxide and not actual freshness? Because most people standing at that meat case have never once been told. Tell us in the comments whether this changes how you will shop. Now, let's move on. 3. Albertsons and Safeway. Albertsons and Safeway operate as a single corporate entity following their merger, though they continue to run stores under both names as well as dozens of regional brands, including Vons, Jewel Osco, Shaw's, Star Market, and Tom Thumb. Together, they represent one of the largest food retail operations in the country. The meat sourcing practices at Albertsons and Safeway reflect the same industrial supply chain model that characterizes Walmart and Kroger, with some additional concerns that are specific to the way this particular corporate entity has handled its operations in recent years. In 2023, the Federal Trade Commission moved to block a proposed merger between Albertsons and Kroger, citing concerns that the combination of the two largest traditional supermarket chains in the country would reduce competition in ways that harmed consumers. Among the concerns raised was the impact such a merger would have on the ability of suppliers, including meat producers, to negotiate fairly with retailers. When a single retail entity controls a sufficiently large share of the grocery market in a region, it acquires the kind of buyer power that allows it to dictate terms to suppliers in ways that push costs down through the supply chain, often at the expense of quality, safety, and the welfare of workers and animals. The FTC's concern was not hypothetical. It was based on documented patterns of how consolidated retail power affects supply chain behavior. But the merger concerns are only part of the Albertsons story. Their meat department has been the subject of consistent consumer complaints around a specific issue: the freshness and presentation of meat products in a way that obscures the true age and condition of the product. Carbon monoxide packaging, a technique used widely across the retail meat industry, involves sealing meat in an atmosphere containing carbon monoxide, which preserves the bright red color of beef long after the meat itself has begun to deteriorate in quality and freshness. Meat packaged this way can look freshly cut and vibrantly red, even when it is days older than its appearance suggests. This technique is legal in the United States. It is not legal in many other developed countries, including across the European Union, where regulators have determined that it misleads consumers about the true condition of the product they are buying. The use of carbon monoxide packaging is not unique to Albertsons and Safeway. It is widespread across the retail meat industry, but in a chain that is already raising concerns about relabeling practices and supply chain pressure, it adds another layer to the picture of an industry that has systematically organized itself around keeping consumers uninformed about the actual quality and age of the meat they are purchasing. And that last sentence is the one worth sitting with. This is not one rogue location with a negligent manager. This is not one bad supplier that slipped through a normally rigorous review process. This is a corporate structure, endorsed by regulators until the FTC finally pushed back, that is designed from the top down to prioritize market control and cost reduction over the basic right of a customer to know what they are actually buying. The bright red color in the case is not freshness. In many instances, it is a chemical process keeping up an appearance that the actual meat can no longer support on its own. If you have been shopping at any of these banner stores, Vons, Jewel Osco, Shaw's, Star Market, Tom Thumb, or either of the flagship names, and you thought the meat looked consistently, almost suspiciously fresh and red no matter when you went in, now you know why. If this is the kind of information you think every grocery shopper deserves to have before they reach into that refrigerated case, hit the like button right now. Not for us, for the person next to you at the meat counter who has no idea this is happening. 2. Dollar General and Family Dollar. You might be surprised to see Dollar General and Family Dollar on this list. They are not grocery stores in the traditional sense. They do not have the sprawling meat cases of a Kroger or a Walmart, but they are increasingly operating as the primary food source for millions of Americans, particularly in rural communities and low-income urban neighborhoods where traditional grocery options have closed or never existed. Dollar General now operates over 19,000 locations in the United States. That is more locations than McDonald's, more locations than any other retailer in the country. And in many of the communities where those locations operate, the Dollar General is the closest thing to a grocery store within a reasonable distance. The meat and refrigerated products sold at Dollar General and Family Dollar are not fresh. They are exclusively frozen, and they come from the lowest tier of the industrial meat supply chain. The brands that populate the freezer cases at Dollar General are the ones that did not make the cut for the major retail chains. The products assembled from the parts and trimmings and processing byproducts that the more visible supply chain does not want its name attached to. This matters enormously for the communities being served by these stores. In 2023, the Food and Drug Administration conducted inspections of Dollar General distribution facilities and found evidence of serious food safety violations, including products stored in conditions that did not meet required temperature standards and evidence of pest activity in storage areas. The FDA issued warning letters. Dollar General responded with statements about taking the issues seriously and implementing corrective measures. The structural problem, though, goes beyond individual inspection failures. Dollar General's entire business model is built on locating stores in communities that lack alternatives and selling products at prices that appear low, but often represent poor value relative to the quality of what is being sold. The frozen meat products in their cases are cheap. They are cheap because they are made from cheap ingredients, processed at the lowest possible cost, and sold to people who in many cases do not have access to better options. This is the food desert problem expressed in a very specific way. When the only affordable food source in a community is selling the lowest quality tier of industrial meat products, the health consequences for that community are real and documented. Higher rates of diet-related disease, less nutritional value per dollar spent, and a complete absence of the transparency and accountability that better resourced communities can demand from their food retailers. For seniors on fixed incomes who live in communities where Dollar General is the realistic option, this is not an abstract policy concern. It is their daily reality. And the corporations profiting from that reality have shown very little interest in changing it. 1. Whole Foods under Amazon ownership. Whole Foods is going to surprise some people in the same way the Chick-fil-A entry surprised people on our chicken chain list. Because for a long time, Whole Foods genuinely was different. And that history is now being used to sell a product that has changed significantly. Whole Foods was founded in Austin, Texas in 1980 as a mission-driven grocery company with unusually rigorous standards for the meat it sold. Its animal welfare rating system evaluated how animals were raised, the conditions they lived in, the amount of outdoor access they had, and the practices of the farms supplying the meat. It was imperfect, but it was meaningfully different from the standards of the conventional grocery industry. For years, that difference mattered. Whole Foods built its reputation on the idea that consumers deserved to know more about where their food came from and how it was produced. Shoppers paid higher prices because they believed they were supporting a system with stricter sourcing standards, better treatment of animals, and more transparency than the average grocery chain. Then, Amazon bought Whole Foods in 2017 for $13.7 billion. Amazon is not a mission-driven food company. Amazon is one of the most sophisticated logistics and retail optimization corporations in history. Its business model is built around eliminating inefficiency, and in retail, inefficiency often looks a lot like expensive quality standards, sourcing commitments, and supplier relationships that cost more than the cheapest available alternative. Since the acquisition, Whole Foods has undergone changes that moved the chain away from many of the standards that originally justified its premium pricing. Smaller regional farms that previously supplied whole foods have reportedly been dropped in favor of larger suppliers capable of meeting the scale and consistency Amazon's logistics system demands. The animal welfare rating system still exists, but former employees and food safety researchers have questioned how consistently those standards are verified and enforced. That distinction matters because a standard only means something if someone is actively checking whether it is being followed. A label on packaging is easy. Maintaining oversight across a massive national supply chain is expensive, complicated, and far harder to sustain once efficiency becomes the dominant corporate priority. What makes this more concerning is that the prices never meaningfully dropped. Whole Foods still charges premium prices based on a reputation built before the acquisition, while many customers are now buying products shaped by a far more corporate supply chain model. This is one of the most effective forms of grocery store meat deception because it operates on trust that was genuinely earned by a different company. The brand reputation remains, but the priorities behind it have fundamentally changed, and most customers do not notice because the stores still look the same. The branding still feels familiar. The packaging still communicates the same image of ethical sourcing and superior standards. But the supply chain underneath those promises has increasingly shifted toward the realities of scale, consistency, and corporate optimization. Where to shop instead? Everything we covered could sound discouraging if it ended there. But the reason these chains are failing consumers is not because selling good meat is impossible. It is because they chose to prioritize scale, efficiency, and profit over transparency and quality. And the proof that better choices are possible is that some retailers are still making them. Local butchers and independent meat shops. The most important shift most people can make is also the oldest. Buy meat from a butcher who can tell you exactly where it came from. A good butcher knows the farm, the breed, how the animal was raised, and how recently it was processed. That level of transparency is impossible in industrial supply chains where meat may come from hundreds of animals processed across multiple facilities before being packaged under one label. Independent butchers also tend to source from smaller regional farms where quality matters because the relationship between producer and retailer is direct. If customers are unhappy, the butcher changes suppliers immediately. That feedback loop creates accountability that industrial grocery systems often lack. There is also a level of knowledge you gain from shopping with a good butcher that no supermarket meat case can provide. You can ask questions. You can learn which cuts work best for different meals. You can find out how fresh the product actually is, instead of relying entirely on packaging dates and marketing language. Yes, meat from a quality butcher costs more, but that higher price reflects the actual cost of raising animals responsibly, processing them carefully, and maintaining standards that prioritize food quality rather than just maximizing efficiency. The lower prices at industrial chains often exist because some part of the real cost has been pushed somewhere else onto workers, animal welfare, environmental damage, or reduced oversight inside the production system itself. Farmers markets and direct farm sales. Farmers markets offer one of the most transparent meat supply chains available to most consumers. You are often buying directly from the people who raised the animal themselves. You can ask how the animals were fed, whether antibiotics were used, how they were processed, and what conditions they were raised in, and you get answers from someone who actually knows because they were there. That level of direct accountability changes the relationship between consumers and food in a way industrial grocery systems simply cannot replicate. Beyond transparency, pasture-raised meat often tastes noticeably different from industrial supermarket meat. Animals raised with more space, lower stress, and more natural conditions produce meat with a different texture, flavor, and nutritional profile. Many farms also offer subscriptions, local delivery, and direct farm purchases, allowing consumers to build long-term relationships with producers they trust. And while people often assume local farms are automatically unaffordable, that is not always true. Certain cuts at farmers markets can compete surprisingly well with premium grocery pricing, especially when compared to chains already charging luxury prices for products that no longer fully justify them. Costco, with specific attention. Costco deserves nuance in this conversation. Costco is still a massive corporation selling enormous quantities of meat. So many industrial supply chain pressures still apply. But compared to chains like Walmart or Kroger, Costco has made several documented commitments that meaningfully distinguish it. Their chicken supply chain is more transparent than most large retailers. Costco even built its own chicken processing facility in Nebraska to maintain greater control over its rotisserie and fresh chicken operations. That does not solve every issue, but it provides more oversight than fully outsourced systems. Their beef standards are also generally stronger than conventional supermarket programs. Much of their Kirkland signature beef is USDA choice or above, with sourcing standards that exceed the basic commodity market. Costco has also responded more seriously than many retailers to customer concerns about antibiotics and animal welfare, even if those efforts are still evolving rather than perfect. That does not make Costco an ideal system. It simply makes them better than many competitors operating at similar scale. For consumers buying larger quantities of meat at manageable prices, Costco represents a significantly better option than many mainstream grocery chains. Trader Joe's, with similar nuance. Trader Joe's occupies a similarly complicated position. Their private label. Meat products are generally sourced with stronger standards than conventional supermarket equivalents. They prohibit added hormones in beef and pork and have made stronger commitments around antibiotic use than much of the industry. Trader Joe's is also more transparent about what its products do and do not include, especially compared to chains criticized for misleading packaging and relabeling practices. They are not perfect, and their supply chain still lacks full transparency. Their welfare standards also do not fully match those of dedicated high-welfare producers. But compared to similarly priced competitors, Trader Joe's is genuinely trying in ways that are documented and verifiable. That distinction matters because the goal is not perfection. The goal is understanding which companies are making measurable efforts toward better sourcing, and which companies are relying almost entirely on branding and consumer assumptions. A note on labels. No matter where you shop, understanding labels matters. Natural on meat packaging means very little. Under USDA rules, it mainly refers to minimal processing and the absence of artificial ingredients. It says nothing about animal welfare, feed quality, antibiotics, or farming conditions. A factory-farmed chicken raised in crowded indoor conditions can still legally carry a natural label. The wording sounds reassuring while communicating almost nothing useful to consumers trying to make informed choices. Grass-fed matters more for beef, but third-party verification matters most. Without independent certification, many grass-fed claims rely heavily on self-reporting. Raised without antibiotics becomes more meaningful when tied to USDA organic or another verified certification program, rather than simple marketing language. The strongest welfare labels are usually certified humane and animal welfare approved because both involve independent audits and measurable welfare standards. The bigger picture, the American meat system was deliberately built around distance and invisibility. The farther consumers are from farms, processing facilities, and sourcing decisions, the easier it becomes for corporations to optimize for appearance and price over quality and accountability. As long as consumers cannot see what happens before the meat reaches the shelf, most people will naturally default to price and presentation, which are exactly the areas industrial food systems are designed to manipulate most effectively. The solution is not necessarily to stop eating meat. The solution is reducing that distance. Buy from people who can explain where the food came from. Read labels knowing that many are carefully designed to imply far more than they actually guarantee. And when possible, support systems where transparency and accountability are built into the process. Most employees inside these grocery chains are not bad people. They are working inside systems designed around corporate priorities, quarterly profits, and operational efficiency. The people making the decisions shaping the food system are rarely in the stores themselves. But understanding that system is the first step toward making different choices. The food industry depends on consumers staying disconnected from the reality behind their food. The less people know about sourcing, processing, and labeling, the easier it becomes to sell appearance as quality. But the farmers, butchers, and producers doing this the right way still exist, and they are easier to find than most people think. If this video saved you from the deadly stores you should avoid, There's another video on your screen exposing more secrets they don't want you to know. Click it before you forget. I'll meet you there.